was like. Hi everyone, my name is Siamak and welcome to this episode of my Geosynthetics podcast. In this episode, I have special guest, and my guest today is Daniel Gibbs. Hi Daniel, and welcome to the episode today.
Thank you, Siamak. Thanks for the invite.
No worries. So, as normal episode of my podcast, Daniel, I want to start with your career. Just a simple question about your background. Where did you start in the geosynthetics industry?
Yeah, sure. Well, I didn't start in geosynthetics. It kind of came to me after I did a stint in the pharmaceutical industry. So that was really where I guess I started my career. I started in quality control, sifting barrels of paracetamol actually for a new supplier, and then I worked my way through manufacturing and from tablet presses and creating capsules of different powders, nutraceuticals and pharmaceuticals, and then I moved into the blister packaging line and then up to quality documentation. I was an officer there, and that's my first real exposure, I suppose, to laboratories and the environment there. So from there, I was made redundant, and I worked for a couple of other pharmaceutical companies and picked up internal quality auditing experience through that process, and then I became an internal external quality officer and auditor for a company in north of Brisbane. Yep. And then it was at that company really that I saw my first or had my first vision of what I wanted to do. And it was really, there was a couple of guys doing research for the company, and they always seemed to be having so much fun, and I always dropped by their little booths and said, what are you working on today? And so I knew from that early on stage, early 2000s, that I really wanted to get into some type of research. I didn't realize it would be geosynthetic research, but it ended up that way. So so in 2004 I had sort of a split decision to make. I got feedback from two companies. One was on the Gold Coast and the other was in Brisbane, and I selected the one down the Gold Coast, and the rest is history, I suppose. That was in 2004. So
that's right. It's been a while. And since then, been in geosynthetics, mainly research and development.
Mainly, yeah. So the first 5 years was as the quality manager, and then now we moved into R&D, and it's been that way ever since, actually. So
very good. No, that's great. And so out of that, the experience you had, and I guess you learned a lot from your previous or pre-geosynthetics experience, and had a lot of skills transferred into the new area, which is geosynthetics for you. So, so in the past few years, I just want to know, I'm keen to know, what was maybe or what is the thing that you most like about geosynthetics, working on different projects that you normally work on a daily basis. What do you enjoy most? What do you like most about it?
Yeah, I would say it's got to be the diversity of people, the diversity of products, the diversity of segments. So, one day I could be standing on a beach cutting out geotextile containers, and the next I could be at the top of a landfill. Then I'm doing forensic analysis in the lab, and so it's a very diverse area. And then I guess the other rewarding part is to be able to help people along with their problems. So if you've got a problem on site, if you've got issues or challenges that from a geotechnical or geosynthetic point of view, then that's really at the heart of what I love about the job, is that the diversity. And it could be grids, it could be GCLs, there's a wide variety of materials and mix of materials to work with. So to understand their behaviors in different scenarios is really has been very rewarding for me.
Yeah. Can you think of examples, maybe recent examples? You mentioned that geotextile sampling, is it?
Yeah, so I mean we've done 3 exhumations on a beach up at Maroochydore actually for the last, they were installed in the early 2000s, and then we've subsequently sampled those 3 times and done analysis, and to see the degradation process over time and under those conditions has been really exciting. And then to match them with some of the accelerated testing that we've done as well, and some of the looking at the fibers through SEM ones that have been exposed versus ones that have gone through an abrasion drum roller, for instance, to see what how similar they are. And it's really led us now to understand the impacts, I suppose, on geosynthetics that have in that coastal zone. So, that sort of knowledge you can only get through long-term exposure.
That's right.
So, that's been very rewarding for me personally.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you reckon there will be like research papers coming out of that work, or?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's one underway at the moment, actually. But we've written reports and things like that. But yeah, nothing in the public eye, I suppose, that's been to this level. Like the last time we sampled was a couple of years ago. So yeah, I watch this space when it comes to that. So, but I think it qualifies the design lives that we had initially gone and suggested that, based on the lab test data and what we know about the environment, it's likely to last this long, and it was spot on in a lot of ways. So that's really good.
Yeah, I think that's actually a very important part of the conversation in the geosynthetics industry at this stage. Durability of the material, and then it can lead into like sustainability discussions as well.
Yeah.
So have you been looking at those areas in specifically in geosynthetics?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, sustainability is definitely a hot key word at the moment. Recycled materials, very hot word. It's important that we understand how the mechanisms of degradation in the first place, and then subject those materials to those degradation mechanisms to understand what and predict, I suppose, what their lifespan is. There's nothing like getting an exhumation from site and doing a test after many years, of course, to be able to model it more appropriately. But again, there's challenges with accelerated testing. There's challenges with exhumed testing, because in on site there's a whole different set of conditions on every site. So you have to take that into consideration as well. But I think from an index property point of view, when we're doing these quasi-index performance type durability assessments where we sink them in water at high elevated temperatures, there is some good understanding, and it sort of, from a manufacturer's point of view, it directs you in a certain puts you in a certain direction in terms of raw material selection, additives, and things like that. So you can craft and design a product for specific circumstances, or you can design a product which covers generally most circumstances. So it's been quite a journey, actually.
Absolutely.
And more so in the last few years, actually, than ever. So
we get this question from our clients a lot, as part of the decision-making process in terms of the design life for any facility that we design.
Because it's all about risk, right? People don't want their products or the products that they purchase to fail within a short period of time, and that has happened. I mean, it has happened if it's not the right product for the right solution or project. So
exactly. So you talked about research, Daniel. I'm just curious to know about your opinion about research in geosynthetics. Should it be ongoing, or why it should be ongoing, and what's your opinion around having more research done on geosynthetics?
Yeah. Look, it's absolutely critical. There's various levels of research. There's qualitative, quantitative, applied research. They're all important aspects, and if you go through research from there's a process, there's phases that you go through in your research. So you assess the problem, you quantify that problem, understand it. There's a literature review and a desktop analysis, and you bring as much information as possible to then begin that assessment. And innovation is linked very closely to research as well, but because of that, and it's that very reason why research is so critical moving forward, is because you have different materials coming in, whether it's recycled materials, different formulations, additives, all that sort of thing. We want to change the game. We want to make things leaner and much higher performing, but we also want to save the environment at the same time. So to do that, you're going to have new products come on, and you've got to challenge them. You've got to find out what their capabilities and their limitations are. And so that you can use them and design with them appropriately. Otherwise, you may have a good looking product that performs well over here, but you go to site B and it doesn't work as well because you've got conditions that are not favourable for that particular formulation. You've got to continue doing research for every site. And the world is changing, products are changing, and it's just the way it is.
That's right. That's right. And so, what's your opinion then about potentially like sharing that knowledge and the outcome of the research? I know you've been involved with a lot of PhD thesis projects as well, supporting the PhD students or providing support to them.
Yeah. Sharing knowledge in this industry is absolutely critical, whether it's through academia, through industry, through research houses such as the one we've got. It is critically important that by sharing that information, you're building a much larger, more precise picture about aspects like durability and things like that, and behaviours in different circumstances. I read, between 6 to 8 papers a day, and it's literally about that cross-pollination, cross-discipline understanding of, recently I've looked at more medical journals this last 12 months or so than I ever have, I think, in my life, trying to understand the mechanisms around certain chemicals and things like that. So, that is important, and knowledge sharing is important. So that's why papers are important. It's important to write papers and then go educate people as to why you've done that particular research and what the outcomes were and how they affect the future of the industry.
Yeah, and I know you also do a lot of like you mentioned, trainings in the industry.
Yeah.
So I remember from the old days that you guys used to come to the offices and provide presentations and technical trainings. To these days, a lot of online sessions. How do you think that will help with that knowledge sharing and helping the industry?
Yeah, I mean, the boom in webinars has been fantastic. We've been able to meet a lot more people worldwide as well. So, that has really opened up the world to us and the industry, and it's allowed people to really log on, and they can be sitting at home, they can be sitting in their office chair, log on and get that information much more readily than it used to be available.
Exactly.
Certainly, like even 15 years ago, that sort of thing, you'd be getting your boots on and you'd be walking into the offices, and you can't be everywhere, at once. So so that's a real challenge. But now that we've got webinar capability and most people are fluent with that now, it's far easier to share that knowledge and information.
Exactly. Yeah. And you talked about research projects. So I'm keen to know, maybe what was one of your most interesting research projects that you've worked on, what you're currently working on, or some examples of the research projects that you worked on.
Yeah, sure. Well, they cover a wide span of products and applications, actually. But I think the most challenging one recently has been the development of the geosynthetic clay liner, the hybrid product. It's a product that really only gained notoriety or acceptance, I suppose, in Australia in the mid to late 90s, and then getting engineers comfortable with using it, in conjunction with or as opposed to compacted clay liners, and showing the equivalency. So that was all the dealings, that salespeople had to deal with and engineers had to deal with in terms of design. But so to change that model, it was a careful consideration on okay, what are we comfortable designing with when it comes to GCLs? How do we modify it and just add value to it without modifying it enough so that it would change the way we design with the product? And so that was a bit of a challenge. And because the development of that started, in the early 2017s, I suppose, several years ago, it was, it's been a long time going through that process from, even simple things like naming and a little icon to go with it, and writing the patent. I've never written a patent before, so that was an interesting exercise. And then having it go through manufacture, having a look at the design, how are we going to actually make this product, and then but there's been an awful lot of people supporting that vision from the start and having their skill sets come on board. So that was really rewarding. But very challenging because the game changed when it came to PFAS. Over the last 4 years or so, it's developed, and people have done a lot more research and analysis into PFAS, and it was important to make sure that we were on the ball every single step of the way as things changed and as we discovered things. The early research with the GCL, and then finding a product to modify it, and then it was quite an exercise to get through, and to have that launched and available now for people that are having those challenges on site is pretty exciting.
That's right. Yeah, and I think the beauty of that, you might be doing a lot of research projects or studies that might end up just being a paper.
Yeah.
Where this one, as you mentioned, you actually had a new product being introduced to the market, which is great.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, a lot of the stuff we do is internally driven, so we see a problem and we carry out that research ourselves. Other times it's doing analysis for other people where they're interested in using several products together. What are the implications? What are the compatibility issues that we've got? And those sorts of things. So yeah, it's diverse. As I said, there's lots of products and lots of segments that we play in. So yeah,
that's right. And like you said, also I think this research is basically solution based. So you actually have products in the market that you actually see how they perform. You're getting feedback from your clients, and then based on that, you're facing a new problem that you want to try and find a solution for it.
Yeah.
So that's all. I think the other side of the like maybe a difference between this particular one.
Yeah, for sure. And as we saw with this product, even going through that design phase and thinking, yep, we've got a bulletproof product. Research is about failure just as much as it is success. So it's finding out where you're failing and what's the problem, what the actual issue is, and then modifying that as you go through. So and it happens in academia as well, where they have a research project, a PhD project, for instance. Here's the project scope, and but then things will change as they find things along the way, and they're like, okay, now we have to go over here and look at that now because that's a real problem. And so that's really exciting and interesting as well, part of that process.
Absolutely. My last question, Daniel, like any other episode of my podcast, is about back again your career and what you have experienced in the past. I just calculated since 2004, it's been 17 years. All the things that you have experienced, all the things that you've seen and enjoyed in this industry, what do you think is your highlights, and why do you think that's your highlights?
Right. Well, I think there's been a few. some really funny things actually have happened, and we've had a lot of fun on the way. From trying to hydrate GCLs in a roll form for people in arid regions because they had no access to water. I mean, that was a highlight. But I think ultimately it comes down to really setting up a research lab. That was the key for me because I had that goal from very early on. To see that come to fruition and actually get the opportunity to start in a lab by myself, set the equipment up, and there were some other guys obviously that were architects of that in a lot of ways. So I take my hat off to them, giving me the opportunity to actually get there but setting up the lab, all the documentation, and then it was I'd only just started in the lab and set some cells up, and then I had to present at that sales conference that year on everything that we'd done and all the projects that we'd done, and it's like, whoa, it's been 2 months. So. But it worked out, and that was really the highlight, I would say, of me reaching that point where I became a R&D lab manager was very exciting.
That's right. And obviously it doesn't stop or never stops. It just keeps. It's an ongoing development. It's a baby born, so now you basically look after it, and I think every couple of years there should be something coming out of that research lab.
Oh, absolutely. There's some exciting things on the boil at the moment, actually. So watch this space when it comes to that. But an awful lot of information, and in fact, linking to what you were saying before about sharing information, it's exactly what the intent is over the next 12 months. Is to take everything we've learned over the last 12 years or so, and put it outside, a bit more available for people, so that they can take that information and use it for their own use as well, and maybe match it to the information that they've got, and cross-pollinate it, as I said before.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I've actually enjoyed a lot. Every time you had presentations in seminars or conferences, that you've been telling about this story of like that research where it started, where we even started thinking about, oh yeah, there is a need here, and we need to do more work here, and having that in like next to a big manufacturing and supply company, basically feeding all of the research and the newest stuff in the industry to the manufacturing and then available to the market. That's I think a great achievement.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good. I feel very blessed.
Yeah.
To be in geosynthetics for the last 17 or so years. So, yeah, really appreciate it.
Great. No, that's it for the episode today. Thanks a lot, Daniel, again for your time, and thank you to the audience for listening and watching us today. And we catch you in our next episode. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.